Good evening. Tonight, the world's attention turns once again to the escalating crisis in Ukraine as President Volodymyr Zelenskyy issues a stark warning that his country faces an impossible choice in the wake of a controversial proposal from former U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump has publicly called for Ukraine to accept a peace plan that would require the country to make significant concessions to Russia, including giving up territory and agreeing to terms that critics describe as politically and militarily untenable. The stakes could not be higher as Zelenskyy prepares to meet with allies at the G20 summit this week. Diplomats and military analysts are closely watching every move, recognizing that decisions made in the coming days could have long-term consequences for European security and the global balance of power. Zelensky's warning comes as Ukraine continues to resist Russia's aggressive advances in the east and south, defending its sovereignty at enormous human and economic cost. Speaking publicly, the Ukrainian president stressed that any plan forcing territorial concessions would undermine not only Ukraine's territorial integrity, but also its ability to maintain national unity and protect civilians. Experts describe the situation as extraordinarily complex. Ukraine's allies, particularly in Europe and North America, are committed to providing military, financial, and diplomatic support, but they also face pressure to push for a negotiated settlement. Zelensky's statement frames Trump's plan as one that could impose impossible choices, placing Ukraine in a position where accepting foreign-imposed terms could risk national survival, while rejecting them could escalate the conflict further. The G20 summit, set to convene in the coming days, provides a critical venue for dialogue among Ukraine's allies and major world powers. High-level officials from the United States, European Union, and NATO countries are expected to discuss coordinated strategies for supporting Kyiv while responding to the diplomatic pressures surrounding Trump's proposal. Analysts note that the summit will likely focus on reaffirming commitments to Ukraine's sovereignty, evaluating the risks and benefits of negotiations, and outlining potential military and economic measures to counter Russian aggression. While Trump's plan has stirred controversy, it has also forced a broader conversation about how the West can navigate peace initiatives without compromising the territorial integrity or security guarantees promised to Ukraine over the past year. Reports indicate that Ukraine's allies are preparing to present a united front at the G20 summit, underscoring their ongoing support for Kyiv while emphasizing that any peace agreement must respect international law and the principles of sovereignty. Officials are wary that concessions demanded by external parties could embolden Russian President Vladimir Putin and weaken NATO's credibility. Meanwhile, Trump has argued that a swift settlement could save lives and reduce the financial burden on Western nations providing aid. Critics counter that his approach prioritizes short-term political optics over the strategic realities on the ground, potentially undermining Ukraine's negotiating position and emboldening Russia to make further territorial claims. The tension highlights the delicate balancing act facing global leaders in the coming days. Ukraine's situation on the battlefield remains precarious, with Russian forces continuing assaults on key cities and strategic regions. Ukrainian commanders report heavy casualties and widespread destruction, underscoring the human cost behind the political debates in global capitals. Zelensky's warning reflects the immense pressure on leaders to weigh moral, strategic, and political considerations simultaneously. Accepting terms that could involve ceding land would carry enormous domestic and international repercussions, while rejecting external pressure risks prolonging the war and increasing civilian suffering. As the world watches, the upcoming G20 summit will serve as a critical forum to determine whether Ukraine can maintain support from allies, resist untenable peace proposals, and navigate a path toward security without compromising sovereignty. At the heart of the discussions at the G20 summit will be a clear strategy for supporting Ukraine in a way that balances military aid with diplomatic engagement. Western leaders are reportedly preparing contingency plans in case Trump's proposed settlement gains traction or influences global perceptions of the conflict. Analysts suggest that the challenge lies in demonstrating unity, signaling unwavering support for Kyiv while avoiding escalation with Russia or alienating other G20 members who may advocate for rapid concessions. Zelensky's public warnings serve a dual purpose. They communicate to his allies the urgency of sustained backing, and they push back against proposals that could undermine Ukraine's negotiating position, emphasizing that sovereignty cannot be traded for expediency. The humanitarian crisis in Ukraine continues to shape the political context. Cities on the front lines are experiencing infrastructure devastation, widespread displacement, and critical shortages of medical and basic supplies. Zelensky's references to an impossible choice underscore the ethical dimension of the conflict. Decisions over territory and concessions are not abstract. They directly affect civilian lives. Humanitarian organizations have urged world leaders to prioritize civilian protection alongside strategic considerations. Within this framework, Trump's plan has drawn criticism for its lack of nuance, appearing to prioritize political optics over the lived realities of Ukrainian citizens. Observers argue that a sustainable peace solution must reconcile military realities with humanitarian obligations, a balance that will dominate summit negotiations. Diplomatic sources indicate that European allies are advocating for a coordinated, multilateral approach that reinforces NATO's credibility while supporting Ukraine's independence. This includes continued economic sanctions against Russia, military assistance packages, and international monitoring mechanisms. Zelensky's concerns about the Trump plan have resonated with these allies, who view unilateral proposals as potentially destabilizing. At the same time, there is recognition that prolonged conflict places immense strain on global supply chains, energy markets, and regional security. Leaders at the G20 summit will need to weigh these broader implications, ensuring that their support for Ukraine is both principled and pragmatic, mitigating the risk of political fragmentation among allied nations. The political dimension of Trump's plan also highlights the domestic stakes in the United States. By promoting a settlement that could be seen as pressuring Ukraine into concessions, Trump has ignited debates about the proper role of former leaders in active foreign conflicts. U.S. policymakers and analysts have warned that such proposals, if influential, could complicate official diplomatic channels and undermine ongoing military support commitments. Zelensky's candid remarks about the impossible choice reflect the pressure Ukraine faces to maintain unity with allies while resisting proposals that could compromise national sovereignty. As the G20 summit approaches, the world will watch closely whether leaders can present a united front or if divergent political agendas will interfere with the coordination necessary to sustain Ukraine's defense. Ultimately, the upcoming G20 summit represents a critical juncture for Ukraine, its allies, and the broader international community. Zelensky's warning is a stark reminder of the stakes. Ukraine's territorial integrity, civilian safety, and future stability hang in the balance. How the global powers respond to Trump's proposed plan will influence not only the course of the war, but also the credibility of international alliances, norms, and commitments. With diplomats, heads of state, and military advisors converging on the summit, the decisions made over the next several days could set the trajectory for years to come. The world will be watching closely as Ukraine and its allies navigate the tightrope between compromise and sovereignty, seeking a resolution that preserves both peace and principle.